Good morning, church and guests. I believe that all of us came here today hoping to hear words from God, didn't we? So I want to talk to you about what God would say if you ask Him this question. What matters to you, God? What do you really care about? What's really important to you? So, what's really important to God? Is that in any interest to you? Well, I hope so, because I believe that it's what God wants to talk to every one of us about today. I don't believe it's coincidence that you're here in this building this morning. I think God wants you to see your life in terms of two categories. So let's talk about what really matters to God. If you study the Bible, you'll discover that it says that God is on an all-out search for two kinds of people. Read it from cover to cover, and you'll find that it pictures God in search mode. But He's not like a casual shopper who strolls through the mall just to see what's there. He's intense and intent about finding and working with two kinds of people. And all of us in this room can fit in one of these two categories. There are actually about 4 kinds of people in this world. But God's really only interested in 2 kinds. Now, have I piqued your curiosity yet about what those 2 kinds are? My hope is that you're going to be able to diagnose the categories you're in right now, and the category you want to be in. So let's get at it. The first category of people that God is searching for, or for His call, is fully committed. Now let me explain this to you. One time in the Old Testament, a well-intentioned king of Israel named Asa came under attack from the neighbor to his north. Asa was a seasoned king who had been at war several times before. In those previous battles, Asa's strategy was to do the best that he could, to arrange his troops tactically, and then pray that God would fight for them. And God always did. As a result, Asa never lost a battle. One time Asa was attacked by a vastly superior force from Ethiopia. In customary fashion, he arranged his troops and then prayed. Here is the actual account. Once an Ethiopian named Zerah attacked Judah with an army of 1,000,000 men and 300 chariots. They advanced to the city of Mareshah. So Asa deployed his army for battle in the valley north of Mareshah. Then Asa cried out to the Lord his God, "O Lord, no one but you can help the powerless against the mighty. Help us, O Lord our God, for we trust in you alone. It is in your name that we have come against this vast horde, O Lord. You are our God. Do not let mere men prevail against you." That's what Asa prayed. Here's what happened. So the Lord defeated the Ethiopians in the presence of Asa and the army of Judah, and the enemies fled. Now that's the background for what I want to tell you now. Several years later, King Asa is older, more established. So when this king from the north attacks him, Asa's reluctant to go into battle, because now he's got more to lose than he used to. When he was just a young king starting out. So this time, in his conservative days, instead of going to battle, he takes money from his treasury and he pays the king of Syria to attack his rival from his eastern flanks. That way, Asa risks nothing. He lets somebody else do his fighting for him. Well, God is watching closely, like he always does. He knows all about the hostile king of Asa's northern border. He is so disappointed when Asa takes the comfortable way out that he sends a prophet to Asa, whose name is Hanani. Hanani the seer came to King Asa and told him, because you have put your trust in the king of Syria instead of the Lord your God, you missed your chance. Don't you remember what happened to the Ethiopians and their vast army? At that time, you relied on the Lord, and he handed them over to you. The eyes of the Lord search for the whole earth in order to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. What a fool you have been. You see what happened there? God knew the predicament Asa was in. It was a chance for Asa to do good and express faith, to be fully committed and prove it to God. You can almost hear God saying, oh, Asa, I have been searching for someone who I could use, someone who would do my bidding, someone who would trust me and be committed to saving my people from their enemy. And Asa, you ducked. You chomped out. Asa, what a fool you have been. God is on an all-out search for two kinds of people in this world. The first kind he can use, fully committed people, is that you. The second kind of people God is searching for is the kind of people we read about in Luke 15 a few minutes ago. Luke 15 explains why God is searching for fully committed people. Now, I told you last week that after reading Luke 14, and God spoke so strongly from that chapter, that I prayed sort of a dumbfounded prayer that God would change me. So after reading Luke 14, I prayed a God, please change me prayer. But I didn't know what that change would look like. And since I was reading Luke 14 at the time, I don't know why I didn't turn the page and look straight at Luke 15 for that certain answer. But I didn't. So God had to take me there in a very creative way. The next assignment for my class was to read and explain the parables of Luke 15. Luke 15 is the record of Jesus telling three parables. The story of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. If you read Jesus' parables, you discover that normally when he tells a parable, he tells the story, and then he goes on to explain what it means before telling another parable. But in Luke 15, Jesus doesn't pause to explain. He just laughs right into the next parable then the next. Why? Well, to understand that, we need to remember the introduction that we read earlier. This is so important. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling, saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners to eat with them." So he told them this parable. Then Jesus tells the story of the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. These stories are so rich and colorful woven that I don't have time to unpack them all the way for you this one week. Next week, we'll learn about the prodigal's father in the last story, who lifted his robe and ran. It's one of my favorite stories in the whole Bible. But today, we will see some things that may just open your eyes about these two categories that God is searching for and what matters to him. Now, in our translation of the Bible, the story of the lost sheep begins this way. Which one of you? Literally, this should be translated, which of you being a shepherd? Now remember, Jesus is delivering this story to a group of devoutly religious leaders, upper class Orthodox Jews. In their mind, being a shepherd was a lowly trade. Shepherds were lower class citizens. And the interest in that when Jesus was born, the angels told the news first to shepherds who were abiding in the field by night. Now, isn't that interesting? Jesus knows that these men think that shepherds are second-class citizens. So he chooses to tell a story about a shepherd to get their attention. He asks them a question about doing something they would never do. When he says, which of you being a shepherd? Immediately, all of them know the answer. None of us would do whatever you're driving at. Because none of us would ever become a shepherd. If we had sheep, we'll hire someone to watch them for us. Jesus gets their attention quickly while they are all thinking about what despicable trait sheep herding is. He tells them about a shepherd who loves his sheep. The second shock comes to them when this shepherd is saddled with the responsibility of actually losing the sheep. Look at verse 4. Which one of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them? In the Middle Eastern culture, saving face is so important. If you were describing a sheep that had strayed, you would never say, suppose the shepherd loses one of them. To help save face, you'll say, suppose one of them wandered off. You would not say, I lost a sheep. You would say, the sheep got lost. Jesus says, the shepherd loses one of them. So this is a shepherd no Pharisees would want to imitate. But this shepherd loves his sheep. Now I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I need you to follow me and concentrate for the next few minutes. And Jesus' story. How many sheep does the shepherd have? 100. And what happens to them? One wanders off. One gets lost. He leaves the other 99 in the open country. He doesn't even bring them back to the city and corral them for the night. He leaves them in potential danger to go and find the one that's lost. When he finds the sheep, what does he do? He puts it on his shoulder and brings it home. And what does he say to his friends? Rejoice with me. Why? Because he's happy. So happy, he throws a party to celebrate. Now, who is the star of the second parable? A woman. Who is Jesus talking to as he tells this parable? Men. Pharisaic men. How did Pharisaic men feel about women? They thought they were not second-class citizens like a shepherd, but third-class citizens. And what does the woman have of value to her? 10 coins. How many sheep did the shepherd have? 100. How many coins did the woman have? 10. Jesus is reducing the proportions. Coins were very rare in their culture. Much of their trades were carried out by barter. Any cash you had would be used only for emergencies, only to buy things you couldn't get any other way. Some scholars think this woman's coins represented her dowry, her bride price. Many tell us that a woman who had coins back then would probably make jewelry out of them, stringing them on a cord to make a necklace. So when this woman lost her coin, it ruined her whole outfit. It wasn't just that she was down one coin. She was also wearing jewelry that had one of its decorations missing. This panicked the woman. She scours the house until she finds it. What does she do when she finds it? She throws a party. Why? Because she's happy. Jesus then tells the third story that we didn't read about this week, but will next week. It's the story of a father who has 2 sons. Notice the progression. 100 sheep, 10 coins, 2 sons. He's lowering the proportions. One of the 2 sons gets lost, but eventually turns up again. And when he does, his father runs to him. Something no Middle Eastern landowner would do. Because to run in his robe meant that he had to lift the robe. And lifting the robe meant he would expose his ankles. And exposing his ankles was undignified. He would lose face in front of the whole village for doing such a thing. A third time, we have a hero that no Pharisees would want to be identified with. When the son is found, the father throws the mother of all parties to celebrate his return. Why? Because he's happy. Those are the 3 stories. I wish we had time to go over them in each in detail. But I will go over the third one in detail next week. Believe me, it will be one of the most exciting stories that you ever heard. All I have time for right now, though, is to summarize and synthesize the stories so that you see why Jesus tells them. 4 things to note. 1, in each of the stories, the plot lines involve something lost. A sheep is lost. A coin is lost. a son has wandered away from home. You might find it helpful at some point in time to go through this chapter and see how many times the word lost, loses, and lost is repeated in its various forms. 2, in each of these stories, what is lost really matters to the hero of the story. Isn't that true? The shepherd is so concerned about the loss of one sheep that he risks the other 99 to find him. The woman is so distraught over the loss of one coin that she cancels her plans and scours the entire house. The father is so broken-hearted that his son has wandered, that he endures the scorn of the entire village by running to him when he finally heads home. In each case, what is lost matters so much to the one who lost it that it warrants an all-out search. 3, in each of the stories, when what was lost is found, the hero is so happy, he or she throws a party to express their joy. 4, in each of the stories, the hero is someone who wouldn't really be admired by most religious leaders. The first hero, a shepherd. A second-class citizen. The second, a woman, a third-class citizen. And the third is a father, a potentially admirable figure until he does the unthinkable and lifts his robe in order to run and save his son from humiliation and shame. No Pharisees could admire a man like that. Put those 4 things together, and what do you have? You have Jesus standing in front of a group of long-standing religious types who think they have figured out what really matters to God. They've read 2 Chronicles 16:9. They would have memorized it by the time they were 10 years old. They see themselves as the fully committed. So their honest and best thinking is that they and only they matter to God. When they see Jesus talking with the outcast of society, they are angered because they believe he, being a rabbi, is demeaning and diminishing God's name and dignity by associating with such low-life people. Jesus is so dread-filled by their thinking that he tells them not 1, not 2, but 3 parables back to back. As if to say, your perception of who matters to God and who doesn't is so far off that I am going to clear this concept up once and for all. I'm going to rapid fire truth into your souls so that you will never again wonder what matters to God. Then he tells them about lost things that matter to people they don't admire. What he's saying to them is, there are 2 kinds of people that God longs for and searches for. The fully committed, those who are lost, and they fully committed are not proud. So, self-conscious, righteous types who think that the most important thing is their religious lives. He really is saying 2 things in this parable. First, matter to God so much that he's on an all-out search to find them. Every time a lost person is found, all of heaven rejoices with the hero of heaven, which is God. And secondly, the fully committed are those who understand this and rejoice with God when he finds what is lost. So much so that they join the all-out search as well. Now, can you see why God says in 2 Chronicles, my eyes are searching the earth to find every person who is fully committed to me? It's because God so loves those who have wandered from his fatherhood that he has enlisted all his other children who are willing to join the search. Only the fully committed search out the lost. Only the fully committed serve long hours at the church so that it's a place where the lost can be found. Only the fully committed pray diligently for their friends who will otherwise spend a Christless eternity. Only the fully committed alter their spending habits so they can render the full tithe and fund ministries that reach the lost people. Only the fully committed stay up late, dreaming of ways to reach out to their lost friends and neighbors. Only the fully committed looks out of eyes that see as God does, thinking first about others and secondly about themselves. Only the fully committed. The hard part about this story for me was that I thought I was fully committed. I wanted to be. I had invested several years of my life because I wanted to serve God fully. The problem is that I thought serving him fully meant serving his already saved sheep. I know how sometimes your mind has nothing to do to think about while you're just sitting around. Well, my mind was vacant for a minute, so I started thinking. I started thinking about how many people in our community have no clue what it means that Christ died for their sins. I could not even estimate how many were lost and didn't even know it. And I thought, but I know it. And I could help them. And who else will if I don't? And how will I ever look God in the face on the day I go to heaven if I don't help those people? How could I even hope to say to him, I followed you fully, if I didn't pray for them, befriend them, and help reach them? But while thinking about all those people, the thought came to me, am I so far off? I thought I really was fully committed. But I vowed that day that I would do everything in my power to invest the rest of my life to help the fully committed reach out to the lost. And that's why our church exists today, to reach out to the lost. And as I look around the room at our members, I have to think, these people get it. Then they really get it. Sure, they have problems. There are struggles in this room, but none of us is here solely to get. We are all here because we want God to be pleased by our full commitment to him. We are here because we want him to use this church to help the other categories that he cares so much about, the lost people. And now I want of you to have the same fire. I hope for the next 4 weeks you'll make some decisions about which spiritual camp you want to be in and what part you want to play for God. I hope all of you will make the decision to invest your life with God, because it's the only life you have. I hope in the next 4 weeks you'll decide to build relationships with your neighbors, your co-workers, praying for them and looking for openness to invite them to church. I hope you'll decide to help make our church a place where seekers are welcome. Getting to know others and finding a place to make a difference according to the gifts and talents that God has given you. I hope you'll decide to manage your time in such a way that you can show up each week and join a small group, which will help you grow even more. I hope you'll decide to manage your money in such a careful way that you can move towards a full tithe, so that we can add more ministries to touch more lost people. And I hope you'll see God for the shepherd, woman, and father that he really is. A God who is on an all-out search for those who are outside of his family. Will you do those things? Believers, there are 2 categories of Christians in this world today: the casual and the committed. Which category are you in? And which category do you want to be in? And I ask all of you who are believers to pray this prayer every day between now and the end of this series. Will you do that? God, I don't ask you for much today. I just ask that you give me your heart for the lost people. And seekers, there are really only 2 categories of the lost in the world: the lost who are looking and the lost who aren't interested in looking. I hope you decide today that you're not ready to come into a relationship with God through his Son, Jesus Christ, that you'll decide to go on a search for him, like he's on a search for you. Here's how I want to end. I want to give all of you a chance to register a decision or 2 in heaven this morning. I want to give you a chance to tell God what category you want to be in and what you are willing to do to get there. Now, will you bow your heads with me? Father, as we begin this prayer, I know your Spirit is present, and I believe you are been speaking to many of us. Friends, how many of you want to say to God this morning, I want to be a fully committed follower of yours today? And how many of you are willing to say, I will commit myself to praying, God, I don't ask you for much today. I just ask that you give me your heart for lost people for now until the end of this series. And how many of you are willing to say, I'm a seeker today and I want to be found, and I want to accept God's invitation to be his son or daughter based on the price Christ paid for my sins? Maybe that step was the boat for you today. But you're willing to say, God, I will become a seeker for who is searching today. And God, now hear my prayer. May us as a church of the fully committed, and a place where the lost can be found. In Jesus' name, amen.